Did you seriously think I wouldn't find out? The words slipped from my mouth before I could stop them. There I was, standing at the edge of the white rose aisle, watching guests sip champagne under crystal chandeliers in the grand Westbridge Hills venue. The string quartet played softly in the background. Madison's bridesmaids fluttered around like pastel butterflies, oblivious. My dad turned around, fixing his tie, looking like a proud father of the bride. I stood frozen, holding my phone, staring at a bank notification. $42,000 withdrawn. My savings.
Gone.
He walked up to me like it was just another Saturday. I figured you'd understand, Claire, he said calmly. It was for family. The string lights above flickered once. My fists clenched. Inside, I felt something shift, a break, not of the heart, but of illusion. This was the moment. I thought he drew the line and I chose to erase it. I'm Claire Henderson. I'm 29. Born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. My life wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. I worked as a pediatric nurse, picked up double shifts, skipped parties, and lived off peanut butter sandwiches to chase a dream I held since I was 10. Opening my own bakery. Not some high-end patisserie. Just a warm little corner shop where kids could come after school and old folks could sit with hot coffee and blueberry muffins. A place like my Grandma Edna's old diner, before it shut down. I used to help her roll dough every Saturday. She'd say, "Claire Bear, good food don't lie. It hugs people in a way they didn't know they needed." When she passed, I swore I'd carry on that warmth. That's what I'd been saving for. Every dollar, every canceled trip, every birthday gift I never bought myself went into my bakery fund. I even lived in a studio with peeling paint just to make those deposits bigger. But my dad, Mark Henderson, never saw me. Not really. After Mom died when I was 15, he remarried within a year. Her name was Diane, suburban polite, with a smile that never touched her eyes. And with Diane came Madison.
Blonde.
Smiling.
Polished.
The kind of girl who never had to ask twice. Dad always said I was too serious. Madison was the fun one. Even in high school, when she crashed my car and blamed me, he just sighed and paid the repairs. I ate the guilt. That was the pattern I earned. She received. So I didn't say anything when he skipped my nursing school graduation to take Madison to a modeling audition in New York. I didn't say anything when he gave her the bedroom with the private bath and moved me into the attic. I just learned to expect less. And save more. But that money was mine. Every cent I stacked was a brick in the foundation of a future only I believed in. Until now, when I stood in a borrowed dress at a venue my savings had paid for and realized he'd handed it all to the daughter he actually loved. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. Instead, I reached into my clutch and pulled out a plain manila envelope, the edges softened from being handled so many times over the past month. My fingers didn't shake. "Actually," I said, stepping past the floating candle display and toward the wedding coordinator, "you might want to take a look at this before things get any further." She paused. My dad's smile faltered. I handed her the envelope, containing the signed partnership contract from the venue owner herself, dated 6 weeks prior. I had approached Evelyn Jacobs, the original venue owner, the moment I saw a deposit go missing from my account. Turns out, Evelyn had been quietly looking to step back from the business due to her health, and I had cash. A lot of it. Thanks to my savings, I now legally owned 51% of the venue, effective immediately. I turned to Madison, who had just walked out in her designer dress, holding her bouquet like it was the crown of royalty. "You booked your dream wedding," I said. "You just didn't realize you'd need my permission to walk down that aisle." She blinked at me. What are you talking about?" I didn't answer. I just nodded toward the venue manager, who was already reading through the paperwork, her brows raised. The silence in that moment, it tasted better than any cake Madison would have had. Madison's face turned the color of her bouquet. Peachy pink drained into pale disbelief. "You can't be serious," she hissed, stepping forward in heels that clicked too loud on the hardwood. "This is my wedding, Claire. You wouldn't ruin my wedding." I didn't flinch. I didn't ruin anything. But you're not walking down that aisle without my permission. And right now, I don't see a reason to give it. Dad stepped between us, voice lowered, as if a softer tone would erase betrayal. Claire, come on. This is family. You don't want to embarrass everyone. I stared at him for a long second. You already did that when you emptied my account. He looked away. It wasn't like that. I borrowed it. We had to put down the final payment or... You didn't even ask me. My voice cracked, not from weakness, but exhaustion. You made me feel like a stranger in my own life. Madison folded her arms. Oh my God, are you really making this about you? You've always been jealous. I let out a small laugh. Jealous? Of what? Being treated like a princess while never lifting a finger. Her mouth opened, then shut. Dad turned cold. Claire, this isn't the time. No, I said sharply. It never was. You made sure of that. When I worked 2 jobs through nursing school, you were in Aruba with Diane and Madison. When I brought you my bakery business plan, you told me it wasn't realistic. But you gave her 42 grand for a party with centerpieces and a chocolate fountain. I felt the stares from the bridal party behind her. One bridesmaid, Jessica, Madison's college roommate, whispered something to another. Then she stepped forward. Wait, Jessica said, frowning at Madison. Is that true? You used her money. Madison's eyes darted. It's not that simple. Dad said she'd understand. She worked herself to the bone, Jessica said quietly. You said your dad was covering it. I thought he was. Madison snapped. I watched the unraveling. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt tall. Rooted. You can still have the ceremony, I said, turning to the planner. But you'll have to sign a revised rental agreement. Market rate. Paid today. Before the music starts. Dad scoffed. You're punishing us. No, I said. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. Madison looked like she might cry. You've always hated me. No, Madison, I replied. I just finally stopped loving you more than I love myself. There it was. The shift. The moment no one expected. Me, taking control without screaming. No threats. Just calm, ice-cold boundaries. Jessica turned to me then, soft but firm. If you ever open that bakery, Claire, I'd like to work with you. Madison looked stunned. Are you serious? Jessica gave a small shrug. Claire earned this. You just took. My father still didn't speak. Maybe he couldn't. Or maybe he realized he'd lost the one daughter who ever truly stood by him. I didn't need them to apologize anymore. I had the deed. And I had my dignity. The wedding didn't happen that day. Madison stormed out, still clutching her veil. Dad tried to smooth things over with the guests, telling them there had been a minor legal hiccup, but everyone knew better. Some stayed for the hors d'oeuvres. Most quietly filtered out. I didn't feel proud. Not exactly. I felt tired. As if I had been carrying a weight so long, I forgot what it felt like to finally put it down. Later that evening, as the staff cleared out and silence settled over the once chaotic ballroom, the venue manager, Dana, walked over with a clipboard. You sure you want to keep it? She asked, tilting her head. Owning a place like this isn't easy. I looked around, at the draped ceilings, the polished floors, the way the moonlight poured through the tall, arched windows. I don't want a palace, I replied. I want a platform. Somewhere to build something that won't be taken from me, without a fight. That night, I stayed late. I rolled up the tablecloths with the staff. I offered the caterers leftover desserts for their kids. And somewhere around midnight, I sat alone in the corner with a notebook. I didn't scribble revenge fantasies. I sketched a plan, the blueprint for something new. The following week, I made a decision. The wedding venue would be transformed into a community event space, open to small businesses, single moms, local artists. A place where people with dreams and grit could showcase what they'd built with their own hands. Like I had. I reached out to Jessica. True to her word, she signed on as my operations lead. She knew marketing, and I knew sweat equity. It worked. By the second month, we were booked solid, baby showers, small weddings, poetry readings, and 2 pop-up food markets. Word spread. People showed up not just because the space was beautiful, but because it had a heartbeat. And that heartbeat? It was mine. One Saturday, I was in the back room icing cupcakes for a teen birthday party when I heard a soft knock. I turned and saw Diane. Of all people. She looked smaller, less glossy. Her smile, for once, wasn't glued on. "I came to say something," she began. "You don't have to listen." I set the spatula down. "You were never the problem," she said. "You just reminded Mark of everything he didn't know how to be. He knew how to give gifts, not guidance. And I let it happen because it was easier." I waited. "I'm sorry," she said. "For all of it." I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just nodded. "I accept that," I said. "But I'm not carrying it anymore." She left a donation at the front desk. For the youth program we'd started. No note. Just $500 in an envelope labeled Hope Fund. I took it as her way of contributing something real, for once. A week later, I hosted a baking workshop for local foster girls. I told them about my Grandma Edna. About the smell of cinnamon rolls on Saturday mornings. About how kneading dough could teach you about patience and healing. One little girl around 9 asked, "Did your family help you do all this?" I smiled and said, "No, sweetheart. But I helped myself. And that's enough." 3 months later, on a crisp Sunday morning, I unlocked the venue doors before sunrise. The garden out front, once neglected and weed-ridden, now bloomed with sunflowers and hydrangeas, planted by a group of teenage volunteers from the local shelter. The scent of rosemary from the herb wall filled the air. It was quiet but alive. Inside, soft jazz played over the speakers. Jessica had just finished setting up for our newest event, a Mothers of Courage brunch, celebrating single mothers who had gone back to school or started small businesses. I stood at the back of the room, watching women walk in wearing second-hand dresses, holding their toddlers with one arm and ambition with the other. Laughter echoed. Coffee poured. Cupcakes I'd baked at dawn were already disappearing. No one there knew what I'd been through. They didn't know that months earlier, this same space had been the battleground of betrayal. They only knew it now as a sanctuary. That's all I'd ever wanted. Jessica came over, nudging my arm. "You good?" I nodded. "More than good." Just then, I spotted a familiar face standing near the entryway. Gray slacks. Shoulders a bit more hunched than I remembered. My father. He wasn't dressed for an event. Just a plain button-up, no tie. He stood awkwardly, hands in his pockets, watching me. He didn't move forward. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. I didn't go to him either. There was nothing left to salvage. But there was something left to witness. He watched me own the space. Create warmth where he once sowed coldness. That was enough. I turned back toward the brunch and walked to the mic. "Good morning, everyone," I said. "Before we begin, I just want to say something I wish someone had told me a long time ago." The room quieted. You don't have to wait for permission to take up space. If the door isn't open, build your own. If your story hasn't been told, write it louder. You're not selfish for wanting more. You're just finally listening to yourself. Applause. Tears in a few eyes. I saw a little girl in the front row, maybe 7, watching me like I was someone important. And for the first time, I believed I was. That night, I sat in my tiny apartment, feet up on the table, sipping lavender tea. I took out the photo of Grandma Edna, the one where she's holding a rolling pin and grinning at the camera like she'd just won the lottery. I set it by the window and whispered, "I did it, Grandma." Then I opened my notebook and sketched a new idea. Claire's Kitchen, a bakery cafe attached to the venue. Something told me I wasn't done building. Not revenge. Not justice. But legacy. And in the quiet of my own space, with the scent of cinnamon still on my sleeves, I realized. Peace doesn't come when others say sorry. It comes when you stop waiting for them to. As the morning sun poured through the window and lit up the photo on the sill, I smiled. There were fresh flowers on the table, clean counters, soft jazz in the air, and for the first time in my life, everything finally felt like mine.